What's up? What's up? What's up? Hello, everybody. Hopefully this video or live finds you well and in excellent spirits. It's your girl Mel of Divine Feminine Works, your favorite astrologer, your favorite reader. Welcome to the live. This channel is everything tarot, astrology, spirituality, and manifestation. So if those are the things you like, if those are the things you love, if those are the things you want to learn more about, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well as that notification bell. So you'll always be notified when I come out with new content. And speaking of content, head over to Instagram and hit that follow button. I've got loads of excellent daily content. Plus, I go live over there every Thursday night at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time for live tarot readings by sign. All right, so check it out so you don't miss any of that stuff. All right, so June, can you believe it? I can't believe that we're already here. I feel like the new year was just last year, and I feel like I say that every single video, but time is just flying by, and I'm honestly not mad about it. I'm ready to get on with things and sort of move on from some of the things that, we've been dealing with. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about yesterday's events, okay?
It hit me really hard, and not because I'm a parent, because I'm not, but just the state of affairs that we're in right now. And I can only imagine what it's like to be a parent and be concerned about your children going to school and their safety. It's a lot. All right. And unfortunately, the astrology sort of predicted it, because yesterday was the first day that Mars entered into Aries. And Mars in Aries is all about war and it's all about violence. And so it's kind of no surprise. And I don't want to sound flippant that I'm saying that, like, oh, the astrology predicted it, it is what it is. Not at all. I mean, that's a tough prediction to deal with, right? But the astrology supports it. And, it really had me in my head. It really had me in my heart. And I'm sure the same goes for all of you. And it made me think of three things, three simple things that I wanted to share with you all, because it's important. And I think that, it's up to us now to make this a better world any way that we can. And so the three things that I'd like to tell you are: number one, check on your people. Okay. Everyone deals with things differently. Everyone is carrying a secret struggle, a secret burden, things they may not be able to talk about. Even your strongest people may be crying on the inside. All right. So it's really important that we check up on each other, whether it's just a quick text or, a voice note or whatever. Check on your people because it's really important. Number two, it's time for us to be empathic. And if you cannot be, I should say empathetic, empathic too, but empathetic. And if you can't be empathetic, at least be sympathetic, because we're all going through something. Like I said before, we're all dealing with something. And it's really important that not only do we lend an ear or lend a shoulder for someone to cry on, but that we make people feel heard, feel seen, and feel understood. I feel like in doing that, we can sort of eliminate a lot of these things that we're seeing in society. All right. And number three, love on the people that you love. We all know that tomorrow is not promised, right? And unfortunately, events such as yesterday's tragedy reminds us of that. It's sort of a slap in the face. So if you love someone, tell them, show them. If you care for someone, do the same thing. We're all in this together. And, give people their flowers while they're here. Love on the people that you love. Protect the people that you love by all means necessary. That's not to say that you should go out and do anything reckless, but love and protect the people that you love. It's very important. And the last thing that I'll say about this is that while we saw yesterday's events sort of coincide with the astrology, like I said before, yesterday Mars went into Aries, and that's all about war. Thankfully, at the end of the week, Venus is going to be going into Taurus, which is all about peace. It's all about peace and it's all about harmony. So I'm hoping and praying that by the end of the week, we're going to see the tide turning in terms of violence, at least trying to turn into peace, and sort of peace trying to prevail. So I'm really hopeful that that is the case. Because as much as the astrology showed out yesterday, I am praying and hoping that the astrology is going to show out once again and sort of correct itself. All right. And with that being said, I love you guys. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being you. I love you. All right. And so without further ado, let's get into June. All right. So I tried to look a little sort of summary, right? Because here in the Northern Hemisphere, June is all about summer. It's all about the summer solstice. Things are heating up. We outside, we are doing the most, and we're really trying to enjoy ourselves and sort of let our hair down. And this is actually a good month astrologically to do so. So we've kind of gotten over the hump of eclipse season. If you watch any of my videos, if you have seen any of my weekly lives or even my live tower readings, you'll know that I feel like every time I get on, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted, or oh my gosh, I'm so tired. And I feel like it was definitely the eclipses. I found them to be super draining. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you found that the eclipses were draining. Like, what was your experience with them? Comment below or leave something in the chat. All right. So, like I said, we got over the eclipse, hump, okay? And we're going to see the themes of the eclipses play out slowly but surely over the next couple of months. And so at the end of April, we started retrograde season. So first retrograde was Pluto, which is still retrograde and will be retrograde until October. Next up, we had the fan favorite Mercury retrograde, which at the time of this filming is still in retrograde. And that's actually going to end on June 3rd. So we're going to get a reprieve from the horrors of Mercury retrograde really soon. All right. And then this month, we've got two other planets going retrograde. We have Saturn and we have Neptune. So while they're not necessarily the same flavor as Mercury retrograde, they do add a nice little oomph to our lives, and kind of in a good way, depending on how you look at it. All right. But I'll get to that in a minute. All right. So apart from retrogrades, this month we also have three planets changing signs. So we've got Mercury, which is going to go back into its home sign of Gemini. So you'll know that when Mercury stationed retrograde in May, around May 10th, I believe, it was in the sign of Gemini. Now, because Mercury moves backwards when it retrogrades, it transited back into Taurus. And now on June 3rd, when it turns direct, it's going to be moving forward and going back into its home sign of Gemini. So wherever Taurus and Gemini are in your chart is where you're probably experiencing a lot of activity, a lot of communication, just a lot of busybody energy. All right. And then next up, we have Venus moving into Gemini as well. Venus is comfy and cozy in its home sign of Taurus, at least as of this Saturday. And that will last until mid-June when it'll transit into Gemini. All right. And then we have the sun going into Cancer, which marks the beginning of summer, which is the summer solstice. And it's when things really pop off. All right. So speaking of the sun, we can't talk about the monthly astro forecast without talking about the sun and the focus that the sun gives during the month. So wherever the sun falls during a particular month is where we have like a spotlight. You know, it's like a spotlight being shown onto a particular area of our lives. That particular area of our lives gets energized. It becomes, it gets heated up, let's say. All right. And it becomes the focus of your consciousness. Either your activities in your environment really reflect where the sun is, or just your thoughts in general are going to be focused on whatever area of your life that the sun is shining upon. All right. So Gemini season is a very busy body season. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? Gemini is, it's a mutable sign. So it's all about energy shifting and changing, number one. Number two, if you think about it, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, it's the end of spring, right? And we have things like graduations, barbecues, people getting ready for the summer. That anticipation of summer is very sort of Gemini energy, right? And it's all about knowledge. It's all about communication. It's all about socializing and curiosity. So again, Gemini season is very busybody. So wherever Gemini is in your chart is where you're going to find that you have a lot of activity. And Gemini season started on May 21st, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But May 20th, actually, no, it was the night. Actually, let me check. Being that this is an astrology forecast, I don't see myself being like, oh, I'm not too sure. No, let me look that shit up because that would make sense, right? Gemini season began on May 20th. All right. So since then, you've seen like a lot of graduations, you've seen a lot of activity, school leveling up, talking about the whole knowledge aspect of Gemini, the intellect. We're coming out of winter. Well, no, we're not just coming out of winter. We're preparing for summer. So we're definitely looking to be social butterflies, doing a whole bunch of stuff. That's typical Gemini season. Just think about if you know any Geminis in your life. I'm pretty sure that they tend to be a little chatty, very sociable. They can definitely strike up a conversation with anybody. They're usually smart, a little witty, very curious, and that's sort of the essence of Gemini season that we're still right in the middle of. All right. And then come the 21st of June, the sun is going to move into Cancer. And Cancer is remarkably different than Gemini. Whereas Gemini is very extroverted, Cancer can be a bit introverted. Cancer is all about security. It's about safety. It's about home and nurturing, sort of taking care of what's in your immediate vicinity. To a certain extent, Cancer is also about feeling comfortable, right? Like whenever, a crab is on the defensive, right? A lot of times they'll retreat within their shell. And that's sort of how Cancer's season can be described, which is kind of weird, right? Because here, again, in the Northern Hemisphere, it's summer. So it's sort of this weird dichotomy between sort of being out there, but being at home. That's sort of how Gemini season feels. Can also make us extremely emotional, very sensitive, and very moody, right? But regardless, wherever Cancer is in your chart, when the sun transits there, typically that's the area of life where you're feeling a little defensive, where you're feeling like you want to protect what you have, and where you also want to nurture what you have. All right. So for instance, if Cancer is on the cusp of your 7th house, and the 7th house rules relationships, when the sun transits Cancer, it's all about sort of protecting your relationships, nurturing them, sort of giving them what they need to thrive. Okay. And so that's sort of the energy that we go into the summer with. Okay. It kind of makes more sense when you think of the Southern Hemisphere, because the summer solstice for us in the Northern Hemisphere is actually like the winter solstice for the Southern Hemisphere. And so in winter, you retreat. So retreating into your shell, being comfy, cozy, being at home and being secure. So it kind of makes more sense with the Southern Hemisphere. But I don't make the rules, so it is what it is. All right. So this month, as with let me not say all months, because some months we have 2 new moons, but this month we have a full moon and a new moon. So the full moon is going to be in the sign of Sagittarius, and that's really going to highlight our sense of adventure. It's also going to highlight our emotions in a very big way. So our emotions may tend to be over the top. They may be larger than life. It's also about expanding our minds and experiencing things on a more broader level, okay? So some of us may be feeling an urge to sort of expand, whether it's in our vicinity, whether it's our mind, whether it's in our relationships. Expansion is sort of going to be the theme of the full moon in Sagittarius, okay? And then we have a new moon in the sign of Cancer at the end of the month. And that's all about starting something new related to home, related to, your immediate vicinity, related to family even. But it's really about planting seeds that you can cultivate and nurture. So any intentions set at this new moon are going to be seeds that we plant that we are really going to nurture over the next couple of months. All right. So it's about taking extra care of things. All right. So it's almost like any intention that we set with this new moon in Cancer are really going to be sort of like our babies, right? And we're really going to want to protect them and nurture them so that they can grow into the manifestations that we ultimately want. All right. And then finally, I just want to touch a little bit on the summer solstice, as I've been mentioning so far. So it's the longest day of the year. It's the day, at least again, in the Northern Hemisphere. It's the day when we have the longest amount of sunlight, okay? And it's also when we're closest to the sun. The way that the earth is tilted, it means that we are right at the sun is the brightest in the sky. It's at the highest point in the sky, and we are the closest to it, okay? So it's all about heating things up. It's all about expression. It's all about your identity and sort of putting yourself out there and being a little bit extroverted, okay? So this is going to mark a time when things may be coming to fruition as well, because from the winter solstice is when we have the least amount of sunlight during the day. We've made our way from the winter solstice now to the summer solstice. And so it's almost like going from a new moon to a full moon, right? But instead of our emotions, it's more about our ego and our identity and our self-expression. And so we're really urged to sort of express ourselves, put ourselves out there for everyone to see, because we all have a bright light, right? And we should all shine it for the world to see. So summer is really, and that's why, well, I'm not going to say that's why we wear less clothes in summer, right? We wear less clothes because it's hot, but it's all about showing yourself, right? That's exactly what the summer solstice is like. All right. So Interesting month, nothing too crazy, nothing too jarring. We've, ridden the wave of eclipse season. We're kind of in the valley of it now. And so this is a good month to sort of get things done, do some reflection because we have some retrograde planets, and move forward. All right. So before I get into the nitty gritty of everything, I want to talk about this. So if you are new to astrology, or even if you've been studying astrology for a while, but you need sort of a refresher, I've created this thing called the Astrology Basics Cheat Sheet, which gives you everything you need to know to start learning astrology, and more importantly, to start reading your natal chart. Okay. Your natal chart is the blueprint to your life. And I know if you've just recently seen your natal chart, or you've had it and you haven't paid attention to it, at first glance, there's like a whole bunch of symbols, numbers, lines, colors, like it can be a little confusing. So what I did was I created this Astrology Basics Cheat Sheet, which gives you everything you need to know to start reading your natal chart. It discusses the planets, the houses, the signs, and the aspects. And it was really just a quick and dirty on the astrology basics. All right. It tells you everything you need to know. And yeah, it's great. Gets you on your way to learning astrology. And the best part, it's free. All you need to do is enter your email address and you can download the cheat sheet for free. If you are interested, the link is in the description box below. All right. So without further ado, let's get into it. Oh, well, actually, before I get into it, some housekeeping rules. All right. So if you are here and live, please introduce yourself. Say hi in the chat. I'd love to interact with you. As best I can. All right. Number 2, these tend to be really long videos because I go through each and every sign. All right. And especially if you are like a Capricorn rising or a Pisces rising, your stuff isn't coming up until like an hour from now. So what I do is anytime I'm changing signs, you're going to hear this. All right. So that is your cue to listen up because I may be on your sign. All right. So I made it easy breezy for you guys. All you got to do is, because I know I'm like this too. I'll put on a live and I'll do something else. Like I'll be cleaning or I'll be reading something or, doing something else and sort of half listening, listening for the important bits. Right. So in an effort to help you with that, I've done that little thing so that whenever I change signs, you guys definitely know. All right. So without further ado, let's get into the month. I pretty much broke down the month already, but I just want to give you a visual of what this month is looking like, astrologically speaking. So we've got Mercury direct, Saturn retrograde, Mercury into its home sign of Gemini, full moon in Sagittarius, Sun in Cancer, Venus in Gemini, new moon in Cancer, and Neptune retrograde. All right. So we've got an interesting mix of planetary energy this month, but again, nothing too crazy, nothing we can't handle. All right. So let's talk about the month for a second. And in chronological order. How about that? All right. So first up, we've got Mercury direct in Taurus on June 3rd. All right. So I hate the cult phenomenon that Mercury retrograde has become. I feel like everyone is all up in arms. They're really scared. They don't know what's going on. We've been dealing with Mercury retrograde for millennia and most of us haven't even noticed, right? So you'll definitely be fine. Your phone might act up. Your computer might malfunction. You may send an email to everyone, like you replied all instead of replying to the original person that sent it to you. Or maybe, you get a communication from someone from the past. It's really not that bad. And I have to say personally, Mercury retrograde hasn't been that bad for me. As a matter of fact, I've reconnected with people I haven't spoken to in years, especially on the business tip. So it's been really, really nice. All right. So as a matter of fact, tell me how Mercury retrograde has been for you. Either hit up the chat or leave a comment down below. All right. I'd love to know how you guys have been experiencing Mercury retrograde. But in any event, on June 3rd, Mercury will cease being retrograde and will go direct in the sign of Taurus. So Mercury in Taurus was all about tangible ideas and communication really geared toward building something, particularly building something of value. So whether it was business, whether it was a relationship, anything that was valuable, that was worth having or worth doing, many of us were thinking about those things or communicating with people about those things, all right? Particularly if these are things from the past or even people from the past. Now that Mercury is going direct, it's going to move back into its home sign of Gemini, where it's like our reflexes are going to be firing on all cylinders. Our thoughts are going to be firing on all cylinders. A lot of prolific thinking, lots of communications, text messages, all of that stuff. And it's great because now that Mercury is going to be direct, you're not going to experience as many mishaps and malfunctions as when it was retrograde. All right. So I think for the next couple of weeks, communication is going to be ramped up, particularly electronically, and even just, interpersonal relationships as well. So we have that to look forward to with Mercury going direct. All right. And again, being that it's going to be in its home sign, it's going to be extra potent. All right. So that energy is going to be super curious, super multitasky, a little mixy, if I'm being honest, because Mercury tends to be the trickster. So you'll find a lot of that energy with Mercury in Gemini as well. All right. So interesting stuff. It's never a dull moment with Mercury in its home sign. All right. The very next day, we have another retrograde. We have Saturn going retrograde in Aquarius. All right. So Saturn retrograde, it's sort of an interesting concept because Saturn is not necessarily a personal planet. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, download the Astrology Basics cheat sheet and know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's not an outer planet also. It's sort of in the middle. Jupiter and Saturn are sort of in the middle in terms of personal and outer. So while we do feel Saturn retrograde somewhat on a personal level, we really feel it more on a societal level as well. All right. And particularly how in our relationships with people. Okay. Now, Saturn rules karma and it rules harsh lessons. All right. So Saturn retrograde can either be like a blessing or it can be a curse depending on where you're at. All right. Let me explain. So Saturn is the school of hard knocks. It is about teaching you life lessons. And if you pass that test, if you pass those lessons, you move on to the next level, right? You elevate, you level up, you graduate, right? But if you haven't learned your lesson, just like in school, if you fail all your courses, you get left back, all right? And you have to repeat the lessons, all right? So some of you may be repeating certain lessons that you didn't learn the first time with Saturn retrograde, okay? So it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's not going to, well, I want to say, let me not say that, but for some it may be, right? Especially if it's a harsh lesson, okay? Let me give you a perfect example. Suppose that you have Saturn in your natal chart in your second house of money, material possessions, and values. One of the things that the second house covers is like your self-esteem and your self-worth. If you have had issues with insecurity, low self-esteem, low self-worth, Saturn retrograde is going to make you revisit that lesson and make sure that you learn it this time around. So it may be a little difficult. It may be a bit of a struggle. But the thing with Saturn is that it puts you through harsh lessons, but rewards you handsomely if you pass them. Okay. So Saturn always leaves you with a gift. Once you've gotten through the harshness of it, it always leaves you with a gift. So if you find that this Saturn retrograde is really putting you through the ringer, if it's really testing you, because that's exactly what it's going to do for some people, know that if you put in the work, you learn your lessons and you pass the test, Saturn is going to give you a really nice gift. Okay. So I guess that's something to look forward to, or maybe not, but regardless, it is what it is. All right. So next up, we have Mercury entering Gemini on the 13th. And I pretty much explained this before. Mercury in its home sign of Gemini, it's busybody energy. It's, doing the most, a little trickster, a little curious, a little mixy, sort of all over the place, but pretty cool. All right. So the next up on the next day, we have the full moon in Sagittarius. All right. And I sort of alluded to this in the introduction. But this is going to be about expanding our minds, right? It's also going to be about feeling our emotions on a very sort of large and larger than life scale. Full moons illuminate, so they'll show us where we have imbalances in our lives because during a full moon, the moon is opposite the sun. So typically, a full moon in Sagittarius is really about what you believe versus what you know. Sagittarius is all about faith and optimism, sort of faith in the unseen and spirituality. Whereas the sister sign of Sagittarius, which happens to be Gemini, is all about facts. It's all about knowledge. It's all about things that can be proven, sort of scientific and technical things. So when you have a full moon in Sagittarius, you're really focused on your faith. You're focused on your spirituality. You're focused on your beliefs, right? But what's also going to be highlighted is what you think, what you believe, what you can prove. So some people may be having a hard time with their spirituality. They may be having a hard time with their spiritual walk. Maybe they've got their head too much in the clouds and aren't grounded, or vice versa. This full moon is sort of going to illuminate that, right? It's also going to illuminate things such as long distance travel, higher education, legal situations, religion, philosophy. All of these things are going to be bright under the light of the moon with this full moon in Sagittarius. So again, I feel like emotions are going to run very high. Sagittarius is all about expansion and making things larger than life. And I feel like our emotions may be over the top as well. So that's something to be mindful of. All right. So thereafter, on the 21st, we have the official start of summer. We have Cancer season, and we have the summer solstice. Oops. I'll get that later. And we've got the summer solstice. All right. So it's all about, like I said before, nurturing, security, self-protection also, things that feel familiar. Cancer season is a very sort of, I'm not even going to say sort of a feel good season, although it can be, especially with, it being the start of summer. But it's also about, again, nurturing. And sometimes our basic emotional needs come into play during Cancer season. Okay. So it's definitely something to be mindful of. Emotions run deep. People tend to be a bit more moody, a bit more sensitive, and a bit more in touch with their emotions, since Cancer is a cardinal water sign. And so it's all about our emotions. And for some, you may find that like your telepathy, psychic abilities, all of that sort of all of those intuitive things are going to be highlighted, or you're going to be focused on them a bit more. That being said, it's also about your intuition. Gemini season is a great time to really follow your intuition more so than your logical brain. Okay. So I would say it's a feel good kind of season, especially again with it being summer. So that is definitely something to look forward to. All right. Next up, we've got Venus entering Gemini on June 22nd, where it will join Mercury. So because Venus and Mercury are the closest planets to the sun, they're always never too far from each other, and they're never far from the sun. So typically they'll be in the same sign as the sun, or they'll be one sign behind. Okay. And so Venus is going to join Mercury in Gemini. And Venus in Gemini, it's all about relationships and money, but it's not in a very emotional sort of way. It's really about the thought and the idea of those things. So it's sort of takes those themes and sort of, I'm not going to say enlarges them, but gets us to be more ideological about them. What do we think about love? What do we think about money? What plans can we make in terms of money, love, fairness, equality? How do we communicate with people? Venus is all about relationships, and Gemini to a certain extent is about relationships also, because it rules communication, and communication is with other people. Right? So it's all about our relationships, but more on an intellectual level and more on just a person to person thing. It doesn't really make love overly emotional or anything like that. Okay. What else can I say about Venus and Gemini? This is about like thinking of a master plan in terms of money, in terms of saving. This could be journaling, writing, with respect to love and money. One of the things that may thrive with Venus and Gemini is like things like poetry. Things like poetry, music even. So if those are sort of the things that you're into, or if those are the things that encompass your career, Venus in Gemini will allow you to think of those things less emotionally and more intellectually. So I don't know, that could be beneficial or it may not be. I guess it depends on you personally. But yeah, Venus in Gemini is also about being very social. It's very much the social butterfly kind of a transit. So this is you going out, meeting people, talking to different people, particularly people in your immediate vicinity or people in a particular community, okay, or neighborhood. People that are just around you, okay? But it's a lot of communication. Could be a lot of communication about love. Could be a lot of paperwork with respect to money and things like that. Business transactions also may ramp up with Venus in Gemini. So again, June, especially during Gemini season and with any planets going into the sign of Gemini, is all about busybody energy. It's all about doing a lot, experiencing a lot, communicating a lot with people. Okay. All right. And so next up, we close out the month with a new moon in Cancer on June 28th. I think I alluded to this in the intro, but this is about planting new seeds that you want to really nurture and protect, okay? I feel like a lot of the intentions we set with that new moon, we're going to hold them close to our hearts. These are going to be things that we're very sensitive about, things that we may be very protective of, things that we may not necessarily share with anyone, all right? Because Cancer is also a bit secretive. In the zodiacal wheel, Cancer is the natural ruler of the fourth house. And the fourth house is all about your private life. So you may find that whatever you're trying to manifest, whatever seeds you're planting, whatever intentions you're setting, you may not want to share them with other people. You really want to keep them to yourself, nurture them, and watch them grow. It reminds me of all of those post I see on Instagram every so often where it's like work in silence and then show them the results. Like that's sort of the theme of that new moon. Okay. So you're going to want to take extra care of whatever you're trying to manifest. And again, sort of keep it to yourself. Okay. Then that same day to close out the month, we have Neptune going retrograde in the sign of Pisces. Okay. So Neptune is in its home sign of Pisces and it's been there for quite some time and it will remain there for quite some time. Okay. And Neptune in Pisces, when it's direct, is all about fantasy. It's all about illusion. It's also a little bit about deception, and things not appearing real. Okay. So Neptune in Pisces, when it's direct, is like wearing rose-colored glasses. It's almost like you just want to see the good in things and in people, and you're kind of living in la la land. It's very unrealistic. Whereas Neptune retrograde in Pisces is almost the exact opposite. It's where we become very aware of the harsh realities of life. It's where the rose-colored glasses come off and you see life for the pile of shit that it can really be sometimes, okay? And, that's a little jarring, okay? And Neptune's going to be retrograde in Pisces for the next couple of months. And it really just gets you to be grounded because when Neptune is direct in Pisces, you've got your head in the clouds. Again, you're in la la land. You're really not here on Earth. You're kind of like a space cadet, right? And Neptune retrograde really brings you back down to Earth and it grounds you. And it's good to engage in fantasy at times because a lot of times we need an escape. And Neptune is all about escapism, right? That's why we have movies and that's why Neptune rules movies. It also rules media, okay? And with Neptune representing illusions, you kind of can tell what I'm getting at, right? Media is not always what you think it is. But that's another video for another day. It's good to escape at times, right? But every so often, we have to come back down to reality. We have to come back down to Earth and really deal with the reality of the situation. And that's exactly what Neptune retrograde in Pisces is going to do. Now, Pisces as a sign sort of signifies humanity. Everyone, all races, all creeds, all colors, everything, right? So over the next couple of months, as if we aren't already, we're going to be seeing more of sort of the harsh realities of life and of humanity, okay? Not necessarily something to look forward to, but again, you need to be realistic sometimes in order to make change, Okay. While you can make change from an elevated state and from a state of fantasy and ideology, sometimes you need to have a perspective of reality in order to affect real change. And that's exactly what Neptune retrograde in Pisces can offer us. Okay. And Neptune is an outer planet. And so seeing this play out in your everyday life, you're not going to see it that much, nor are you going to feel it that much. But we're going to definitely see this play out on the grand stage of society. All right. And again, it's about the harsh realities of humanity, as if we're not seeing enough of that already. But we're going to start to see more of that with this particular retrograde. All right. So kind of ending the month on a somewhat not so great note with Neptune retrograde, but with the new moon in Cancer that same day, and we're closing out the month with that, gives us a little hope, right? And I also feel like that's why it's going to be so important to not really share your intentions, at least for this new moon in Cancer, with everyone, because for the very reason that you're going to understand and see the harsh realities of humanity, right? And it's almost, that's what's going to make you feel so protective over your intention and over your manifestation, because you're like, yeah, everyone in this world is batshit crazy. A lot of shit is going down. I don't like it. The world is so ugly. Like, I'm not telling anyone what I'm doing. Like, I want to protect my manifestation. I want to protect my intention as much as I can. I want to shield it from all of this bullshit that's going on. So that's sort of how we're going to end the month, on a sort of quiet, protective note, and sort of taking notice of what's going on around us in society and in humanity. So interesting month, to say the least. But again, I love the fact that we're over the eclipse hump, because I feel like the last month has been something crazy, right? And we're sort of entering the summer on a much calmer note. So much can be accomplished this month. And as I get into the signs, you'll see exactly what areas of your life are going to be highlighted, so you can make those changes and use the planetary energy to your advantage. All right. So let's get into the individual monthlies. All right. And so you're going to see it on the screen, but it also bears mentioning that all of these are done by rising signs. And just a note for all of you, if you read horoscopes are always done by rising signs. Very rarely are they done for sun signs. Although it can apply to your sun sign, it's really your rising sign that you need to look out for and listen up for. All right. Now, if you don't know what your rising sign is, I suggest you go to a site like astro-seek.com. I'll leave the link in the description box below. You enter your birth time, date, and location. It'll generate a natal chart for you, and it'll let you know exactly what sign your ascendant is. And also, another quick aside, what is your ascendant? Especially if you don't know what it is, right? Your ascendant is how the world sees you. Okay. Let me compare it to your sun sign. So your sun sign is the characteristics that you portray. It's your identity. It's your personality. But we all wear a mask, right? And that mask is our ascendant. So it's how the world sees you. I'll give you a perfect example. I have a really good friend of mine who has a birthday on May 22nd, right? And every time I've seen him, I never think of him as a Gemini, because technically he is, because he is he exhibits such Taurus energy. Like, I always think that he's a Taurus, and then I have to look up when May 22nd is, like what sign it is, because I always get confused. And come to find out, I did his natal chart, and he is in fact a Taurus rising. Like, every sign has certain physical attributes, has certain personality traits that are associated with it. And that's really how the world sees you. So while you may be, let's say, a Capricorn sun, so you may be all about your money, you may be really about status and about achieving things and all of that sort of real world status stuff. If you're like a Pisces rising, the world sees you as someone who's intuitive and soft and meditative and right? Like, you see the difference, right? So that's really how your ascendant works, okay? It's really interesting, the interplay between your ascendant and your sun sign, but I'll save all of that for another video on another day, all right? So I just say all that to say that these are done by rising sign, all right? So check out your rising sign and listen up for your rising sign. All right, so first sign we have up, there goes the bell. We've got Aries rising. All right, Aries. So the areas of life that are of concern and are a focus for you this month are you. And when I say you, I mean you, your physical body, your attitude, your outlook on life, your first house, your money, okay? Your money, your assets, the things that you value. Your immediate vicinity, your neighborhood, your community also covers things like your siblings and your extended family members. And finally, your spirituality, your faith, your belief, and your optimism. All right, so let's get into it and see what we have for you. So, Aries, you have an emphasis on your first house, first of all, because your ruling planet Mars is in its sign of Aries, okay? Jupiter is also there as well. So, this month, you guys are going to be feeling a lot like yourselves, okay? You're going to be exuberant, you're going to be direct, bold, and dynamic. And fortune favors the bold with Jupiter in Aries. So really this month, by being yourself, you can really find your abundance. Abundance can really find you this month, okay? It's also about a lot of personal growth, okay? And I always say this, when Jupiter transits your first house, you're really going to want to be careful about what you eat and getting pregnant if you're a woman or someone who identifies as a woman. Jupiter expands, and the first house is all about your physical body. And so, yeah, if you overeat, you may really see it very quickly. Okay. So you're going to want to take care of that if you feel the need to. And, if you are, someone who gets pregnant, if you're a woman, Jupiter in your first house can also indicate pregnancy. So if you don't want to get pregnant right now, you know what to do. All right. But more so than that, this month you guys are going to be feeling like yourself. You're going to be feeling like starting things, initiating things, being bold, being direct, and really going after your goals and ambitions. All right. But again, unfortunately, as we saw with yesterday's events, Mars in Aries is also about violence. It's also about conflict. It's all about combat. So you may find that you are very combative, particularly if you're very headstrong about your beliefs, if you're very headstrong about your opinions. You may find that may lead to conflict, and conflicts can escalate and expand like a firecracker. So you need to be really mindful about what you say, how you say it, and who you say it to, because things can ignite at a moment's notice. It's almost like Jupiter is going to pour gasoline on an already huge fire. So I really implore you to keep your temper in check and really check yourself before you wreck yourself. All right. Next up, you have an emphasis on your second house because Venus and Mercury retrograde are going to be in there this month. And so this is about money, values, self-worth, self-esteem, assets, things that we value. All right. And so this is really about money and values because Venus is going to be in its home sign of Taurus, which is your second house, which is the natural ruler of the second house. So money matters are going to be a real thing this month, okay? Particularly money matters from the past. This could mean that money that is owed to you is coming back to you. You're getting repaid. You're getting paid finally. This could be past financial plans that you're reviewing, maybe a savings plan, maybe an income stream that you thought about before. Now may be time to implement it with Mercury retrograde in Taurus, okay? So this is really about also past values, issues or circumstances dealing with your self-worth, okay? All of these things may come up this month as well. Next up, you have an emphasis on your third house of communication and ideas because Mercury, Venus, and the Sun are going to be in that house. So the beginning half of the month, this is really going to be a focus for you because that's where your consciousness is going to be focused, all right? And this is all about that busybody energy I was talking about before. So lots of communication, lots of socializing, especially with Venus in there. Connecting with people, networking with people. Business transactions may also ramp up. And with the Sun in there, it's sort of going to energize those business transactions. So things may ramp up for you this month. All right. And again, lots of communication. Sorry, I need to take a drink of water. All right. Next up, you have an emphasis on your fourth house of home, family and domestic affairs, because the sun and the new moon are going to be in there this month. All right. So this is Cancer season. Cancer season is going to find you at home or dealing with home and family issues. This is going to be planting new seeds with respect to home and family. So you may want to purchase property. You may want to change your home. Maybe you are maybe you're engaged in family planning and you're planning a child, or you are planning on having your parents move in with you, or vice versa. But there's a lot of that kind of activity that's going to be going on, particularly once the sun moves into Cancer on the 21st. So that's something nice to look forward to. And then finally, you have an emphasis on your 9th house, because that's where the full moon in Sagittarius is going to be. And this is all about what you believe versus what you know. And this is exactly what I was talking about when I was talking about the full moon earlier. It's all about your faith and faith in the unknown versus, scientific facts and things that can be proven. It's also about things that are at a distance from you versus things that are in your immediate vicinity. And with the moon being in Sagittarius, many of you may find that things that are at a distance from you, whether it's foreign affairs, foreign business, maybe you have relationships that are at a distance from you, those are going to be highlighted at the full moon, okay? This could also be the culmination of something at a distance from you. For some, given that the 9th house covers higher education, this could be graduation, whether it's from grad school, med school, law school, your PhD program, all of those things. Maybe the culmination of a legal situation, because the 9th house also covers the law, justice, and legal situations. So legal situation may be coming to a finale at that time. All right. But regardless, it's going to highlight things that either broaden your mind or broaden your emotions, or heighten your emotions, I should say. All right. So that was Aries. We move on now. There goes the bell. To Taurus. Taurus rising. All right. So this month you have an emphasis on you. Your first house is going to emphasize. So you, meaning your physical body, your attitude, your outlook on life. You know the deal. Your money. Okay. Pretty self-explanatory. Your money, your assets, things that you value, self-worth, self-esteem. Your immediate vicinity, your neighborhood, your building, your community, also covers siblings and extended family members. And then finally, intimacy, transformation, and regeneration. All right. So let's get into it. All right. So you have an emphasis on your first house because your ruling planet Venus is going to be in there, and also Mercury retrograde. So this is an emphasis on you, and particularly your looks. Venus is all about beauty, right? So many of you may be focused on your looks, focused on your body, focused on your appearance. Some of you may be really thinking about past ideas as they relate to you. Okay. Excuse me. So this could really be thinking about personal plans you made for yourself. Perhaps a while back you were like, you know what? I really want to get in better shape, but you kind of let it fall by the wayside. With Mercury retrograde in your first house, those ideas may come back, right? And it's interesting because Taurus rules physical things. It's like typically like physical products. And the best way I can think about Mercury retrograde in Taurus in your first house is like, let's say you get on this health kick, right? And you're like, okay, I'm going to buy all of this fitness equipment. I'm going to buy, dumbbells. I'm going to buy kettlebells. I'm going to buy all of this shit. And you let it just sit in the garage or sit in your basement collecting dust, right? Mercury retrograde is going to be like, wow, I really feel inspired to get my health in order, to get my summer body. Oh, I have all of these things I haven't used before. All of this workout and exercise equipment I haven't used. And so that may be how this plays out for some of you. So for some of you Taurus risings, if you're on that health kick, look around the house. Look at what you bought 2 years ago, especially during the pandemic, right? Look around your house, because a lot of what you may need to fulfill that goal may be like literally right under your nose. All right. Next up, you have an emphasis on your second house, particularly when the sun is technically in Gemini, but your ruling planet Venus is also going to move in there as well as Mercury. So again, this is all about your money. This is all about how you value your money, because Venus is all about money. Second house is all about values, right? It's all about the right connections with respect to money, because this is happening in Gemini. So making the right connections this month in terms of increasing your money, increasing your value even. For some, Gemini, well, not for some, for everyone, Gemini is all about learning new skills, particularly technical skills. All right. And you may find that in learning some new skills, it increases your value, particularly as like a candidate for a job, or as, someone that clients will perceive you as valuable with respect to whatever they're looking for. So you might want to, at least in the beginning half of the month, learn a new skill, perhaps a skill that you can monetize, because I feel like the astrology is really going to support that and help you increase your money and your value. Okay. This is all about finances, financial paperwork also, and paperwork in general. So I really feel like, especially in the first half of the month, you guys may be dealing with a lot of paperwork having to do with money issues. So it could be contracts, could be taxes, anything having to do with money and paperwork may be a real thing for you, particularly in the first half of the month. All right. Next up, we have an emphasis on the third house, because the sun and the new moon are going to be in there come Cancer season. This is going to be about new transactions, right? And also sort of protecting your investments. Transactions. The one thing I get with this is like insurance policies. So insurance policies may be a thing, especially come Cancer season. And this sort of goes with what I was saying before about how the first half of the month is all about financial paperwork. I think paperwork with respect to insuring things especially in your home, or your home itself, may be a focus, definitely come Cancer season. But it's also the other sort of interesting spin on the sun and the new moon in Cancer in your third house of Gemini. Healing words, okay? There's something about words being healing, thoughts and communications being healing. And I feel like many of you will be seeking healing words, healing thoughts. This gives me like meditation vibes. This gives me like guided meditations, journaling for healing. So I think that many of you may be undergoing this element of healing come Cancer season, which I think is excellent, right? We all have seasons of healing. And I think for you, Taurus rising, it's going to be Cancer season. All right. And then finally, you have an emphasis on your 8th house of transformation with the full moon in Sagittarius. So this is going to highlight other people's resources versus your resources. Okay. Particularly when it comes to things like higher education, when it comes to legal proceedings. So for some of you, especially if you're dealing with something like a custody issue or a divorce, I feel like that is going to be heightened at the full moon in Sagittarius, okay? It's also about things like intimacy and substance on the one hand versus sort of superficiality on the other. And I feel like that's going to play out particularly obviously in your relationships, but also with your emotions. I feel like for some of you, your emotions, especially when it comes to intimate partnerships, are going to run very deep around the full moon. For others of you, I think it's going to show you where you've been lacking emotion or where you've been lacking emotional vulnerability in your intimate relationships. I feel like the full moon is going to shine a huge spotlight on that. So that's something that you may have to deal with, and which may be a little jarring because it may bring up things related to intimacy that you struggle with or that you get triggered by. Things like abandonment, things like codependency, those things may come up. But ultimately, being that this full moon is going down in your 8th house, it's all about transformation. So it's all about transmuting the energy from something that kind of sucks to something that's really good. All right. So keep that in mind if you find that the full moon sort of really takes you through it emotionally. All right. So that was Taurus. Moving right along, we get to Gemini. All right. So for you, Gemini, the areas of focus this month are the unknown, all right? This is the 12th house. The unknown really means faith, the unseen, God, the universe, whatever you believe in. You also have a focus on you, your body, your attitude, your outlook on life, your money, your assets, your possessions, the things that you value, your self-esteem and your self-worth. And also your relationships. Now, these are going to be relationships that are committed relationships, like serious relationships, or even business relationships where you are legally bound to someone. So this covers things like marriages, business associations, even work agreements, depending on if you sign a contract, things like that. So those are the areas of life that are in focus for you this month. All right, so let's get into it. So first up, you have an emphasis on your 12th house because Venus and your ruling planet Mercury, that is retrograde, will be in there. All right. So this is all about your relationship to God, your relationship to the universe, even the relationship with your higher self, and also how you view the unknown and how you interact with the unknown. Being that the 12th house is a very spiritual house, I think that some of you may be revisiting past spiritual practices. Some of you, perhaps if you've strayed away from church or your particular religion, I feel like you may sort of be reeled back in, particularly in Gemini season, okay? And it's sort of up to you to assess if it's still valuable to you or not. That is because of the presence of Venus in your 12th house. So you may take what works and not, or some of you may find that, you need to get back into church or you need to get back into spirituality because it's a value to you. Your relationship to religion, your relationship with your church or with your faith is something that's valuable to you and you want to revisit that. Like that's really the essence of this 12th house energy for you. It's also karma. And with Mercury retrograde, this is almost like whatever you've done is going to come back to you, particularly things that you've said, especially to other people. Okay. So this could be however you treated a partner in a relationship, however you treated a friend or a family member, that karma may come back to bite you in the ass. If you believe in karma, not everyone believes in it. And if you don't believe in it, then it probably doesn't affect you, but that's another video for another day. But yeah, it also rules karma. So some of you may be experiencing some karma with respect to relationships with that transit as well. Next up, you have a first house emphasis. You've got your ruling planet Mercury. You've also got Venus and the sun in your first house this month. And when I mentioned, just as a general note, this is sort of an overview of what the month is going to look and feel like for you. It's not relative to the dates that everything is happening. This is sort of the general flavor of how the month is going to play out. All right. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind. So yes. But first of all, I'm sorry. Happy birthday. Well, I should say this for Gemini suns. Even though I'm talking about Gemini rising, for all the Gemini suns, happy birthday. I really hope that this new revolution around the sun brings you everything that your heart truly desires. All right. Turn up because it is still your season, at least until the 21st. All right. So back to your first house. So this is all about your body, your your attitude and your thoughts, right? It's also going to be about your self-esteem because Venus is going to be in your first house as well. So at least while the sun is in Gemini, it's all about you. It's all about how you look even. With Venus in your first house, a lot of you are going to be really attractive, very magnetic, very charismatic. So if you're looking, to be social, if you're looking to really interact with people, put yourself out there because people are really going to find you attractive. Okay. It's also about your self-esteem. Like I said, your attitude. So the first half of the month is really a focus on you, everything about you, sort of a complete workup of yourself. All right. And that's a great way to start your personal new year, sort of taking stock of where you're at so that you can get to where you want to go over the next year. All right. Then come Cancer season, you have an emphasis on your second house of money and material possessions. The sun will be in there and the new moon will be in there. So this is going to be the perfect time to set intentions related to money. Now with Cancer being a sign of nurturing, and like I said, the Cancer new moon is going to have you really nurturing and protecting these intentions. This is the new moon for you to create a nest egg, all right, to save, to really stockpile your money and put it away in a safe place for a rainy day. All right. So get those financial plans in order, set those financial intentions because the new moon in Cancer is going to be perfect for that. All right. And then finally, you have an emphasis on your 7th house with the full moon in Sagittarius. This is going to be the dichotomy between we versus me. And the we part is going to be highlighted with the full moon in your 7th house of Sagittarius. Okay. So this is all about relationships, commitments, contractual obligations. Anyone to whom you are bound is covered under the 7th house of relationships. So those are going to come into play. And again, it's that dichotomy of we versus me. So is that in balance for you? Have you been paying more attention to me, or have you been paying more attention to we? The full moon is going to illuminate that and allow you to adjust accordingly. All right. All right, Gemini. So that was you. Next up, we've got Cancer. And to all of my beautiful Cancers out there, happy birthday. I know quite a few Cancers, and they love to turn up for their birthdays. Like, even though Cancers can be moody and sort of in their shell, I'm telling you, once Cancer season comes around, like, they are just all out there living their best lives. So again, happy birthday. I also hope that you have another beautiful and bountiful revolution around the sun. All right. So for you guys, the areas of focus this month are your friendships, your goals, and your ambitions. The unknown. So this is about spirituality. This is about faith. This is about karma. All of those things I mentioned before, if you were listening. Once the sun hits Cancer, it's all about you, your body, your attitude, your outlook on life. It's your personal new year. And then finally, you have an emphasis on your work and health. This could be the service that you provide for others, like your regular 9-to-5 job. This could also be about your health. So it's also about your physical body and your health. But your health could also include your emotional or even your spiritual health. All right. So it really depends on you. But those are the areas that you are going to find highlighted this month. All right. So let's get into it. All right, Cancer. So first up, you have an emphasis on your 11th house of friendship and goals, because Venus is going to be in there and Mercury retrograde is going to be in there. And your 11th house is Taurus. All right. So this is all about your friendships. Okay. And the value that you place on your friendships. Now, with Mercury being retrograde, you may find that you're talking to and communicating with friends from the past, people you haven't spoken to in a while, people that maybe you randomly start striking up a conversation with, someone you went to high school with, or someone you lost touch with over the last couple of years. It's all about reconnecting. All right. It's also about past conversations with friends, okay, or with people with whom you associate. So past conversations, past ideas that you may have talked about with friends or associates or anything like that may come back up, okay? The 11th house also covers goals and ambitions. We often call the 11th house the house where you wish upon a star. It's the house where dreams come true, right? With Mercury retrograde being in your 11th house, this may be a time when you really focus on ambitions that you let fall by the wayside. Maybe you had a very lofty ambition that either intimidated you or you thought was way too hard to achieve, and you kind of just threw it to the side and forgot about it. Well, I think that Mercury retrograde is going to allow you to revisit that, perhaps reinvigorate it, okay, and re-implement it into your life, okay? Again, this could be something like losing weight. This could be networking. This could be a career goal, something that usually 11th house goals are huge, right? They're like life goals, okay? And sometimes those can be a little too much for us. Sometimes they can be a little too intimidating. And so we sort of put them to the side. We don't necessarily forget them, but we don't give them attention either. But thankfully, Mercury retrograde, again, can sort of invigorate those and reestablish those goals in your life. Next up, when the sun is in Gemini, we have an emphasis on your 12th house. Mercury and Venus will also be in your 12th house. So you're going to have a bit of this spiritual energy. Okay. So again, the 12th house covers things like faith. It covers things like karma. It also covers like going into your mind and reflection, but reflection on a very deep level. Okay. And I feel like you guys are really going to be doing that. Okay. Because this season before your solar return, right? So if you're a Cancer, Gemini season for you is all about resting, recharging, and reflecting. It's almost like on December 31st or right before New Year's, we sort of take stock of how the year went and we look forward to the future. That's exactly what the season before your solar return is like. And so during Gemini season, that's exactly what you're doing. So you may be taking stock of your relationships. You may be taking stock of your business transactions, what you've been thinking, how you've been speaking, your thoughts, your ambitions, all of those things are sort of up for review in Gemini season. All right. So it's also a time for you guys to rest, relax, and recharge because your season is coming up and you want to turn up. You want to do the most. You want to really be out there and focus on you. So it's imperative that you sort of power down for a bit so that you can get ready for your season. And then come Cancer season, you're going to have an emphasis on your first house. And you're going to have the sun and the new moon in your first house. So this is all about a new you, right? New me, who this? That's exactly what the second half of June is going to be like for you, right? So this is setting personal goals. This is, your body, your attitude, how you look, your appearance. I know how you look and your appearance are the same. I think I'm just running out of words at this point. But yeah, you're really going to be focusing on yourself and moving forward into this personal new year of yours. Okay. And that's going to be come Cancer season and towards the second half of the month. And then finally, with the full moon in Sagittarius, you're going to have an emphasis on your sixth house, which covers work and health. So this is going to be your physical body versus your spiritual body. Okay. And sort of the things that you can do and the things that you do in your regular life, in your everyday routine versus like the overarching purpose of your life, right? It's almost like the day-to-day versus your whole entire life. I know that it's sort of an abstract way to put it, but that's really how it is. Again, it's your physical body versus your spiritual body, your reality versus your fantasy, or I shouldn't say fantasy because I don't feel like your spirituality is your fantasy, but your reality versus your spirituality. Okay. It's also work and health. So some of you may be dealing with a health issue may arise. Some of you the moon may highlight the fact that you're focusing too much on your everyday and not enough on your spiritual. So you're focusing too much on your physical body, not enough on your spiritual body, or vice versa. And that may be affecting your physical health. Some of you, this may be a time for you to be efficient. This may be the time that a work project or work endeavor comes to a culmination. Maybe a health matter is finally concluded, or maybe now light is being shown on a health matter that you've been neglecting. Either way, that's how that full moon is going to play out for you. And that's how June is going to play out for you. All right. Next up, we've got Leo rising. We are working our way through these many, many signs. As a side note, I feel like I love doing these, by the way. Like I love being able to bring this information to you guys, not just because it's super important, but it's fun. It's fun. And the whole point of astrology is to learn about ourselves. Let me just take this off for a second because I feel a little diatribe coming on. The whole point of astrology, at least from my perspective, it's not just to know this stuff, right? It's not just, I know what this planet means. I know how it's going to play out. It's whatever. Like I use astrology as a way to understand myself and a way to heal myself. And the purpose of me bringing this information to you is to do the same for you, is to shed light on ourselves, light on how the planets affect us here on Earth, whether on a very personal level or on a societal level, right? Astrology is so important. And it's not just, sun sign memes on Instagram, although those can be funny and sometimes they're very true. Astrology is about understanding ourselves in a way that we're not taught to, right? Astrology, along with things like psychology, sort of go hand in hand. And we all know how people feel about psychology. Either they're really into it or they're like, it's the devil's work, which is how I feel people think about astrology as well. But my purpose in bringing this information to you is to help you understand yourself and how to move about in this world and how to heal yourself, how to reach your destiny. All of these things are covered by astrology, and you can literally find all of these things in your natal chart. Right? So that's just my purpose for bringing this to you. And it's funny because these monthly lives, they take a lot. It takes a lot of It's not even research because I kind of know this stuff off the top of my head, but it takes a lot of planning and organization to make it in such a way that it makes sense. At least I'm hoping that it makes sense. But yeah, getting through this can be a little taxing though, because it's a lot of talking. It's a lot of signs, but just know that I bring this to you from the bottom of my heart. It's super important. And I hope that even if you catch just a portion of this video, or even if only a little bit of it resonates with you, I hope that that knowledge allows you to do something great for yourself. So that's my speech and I'm sticking to it. All right. So we are up to Leo. All right, Leo risings. So this month, the areas of focus for you are your career and your public life, your friendships and your ambitions, the unknown, like I've been talking about before, that faith, optimism, and spirituality, and creativity and self-expression, which is right up your alley. All right. So there's a portion of this month that's really going to have you feeling like yourself. All right. Which we all know you love to do. Y'all love yourselves. And I love that for you. Don't get me wrong. I love Leo energy. My North Node is in Leo, and that's sort of, I have to learn how to be like y'all, but love that Leo energy. All right. So let's get into it. First up, you have an emphasis on your 10th house because we've got Mercury and we have Mercury. We've got Mercury retrograde and Venus in your 10th house. Now, the 10th house covers career and public life. So this is obviously your career, your vocation, your life's purpose. It also covers things like your reputation and your social standing. So it's the part of you that lives out loud, that lives in the public eye. And that is what is going to be highlighted this month. All right. So this, with Venus in there, this is going to be about your relationship, the relationships that you have concerning your career. So these are work relationships. Perhaps it's your relationship with authority figures like bosses, supervisors, managers. This is also your relationship to people at large, especially if you have your own business. This could also cover clients, employees. It's also fans, followers, subscribers, basically the whole public, right? How you relate to them. How valuable are those relationships to you? I think that this month is going to ask those questions of you, and hopefully you'll be able to answer, right? With Mercury retrograde, you may be revisiting past conversations related to your career, past communications. Prime example that comes off the top of my head. Let's say that you're an entrepreneur and let's say you're a YouTuber, right? Perhaps something you said in the past may come to bite you in the ass. All right. Maybe you said something that wasn't necessarily PC. Maybe you contradicted yourself at some point. I feel like Mercury retrograde may bring that back and sort of slap you in the face with it. Although that Mercury retrograde isn't going to be that bad or that drastic, you may just be dealing with past work conversations, past work emails, past paperwork that maybe that you hadn't gotten to or that maybe needs reviewing or revising. All of those things are up for grabs this month. Okay. Next up, we have emphasis on your 11th house of friendship, goals, and ambitions. And this is the essence of Gemini season for you because Venus, Mercury, and the Sun will be in your 11th house. So this is all about your friendships, your associations, the groups with which you associate. All of those things and those relationships are going to come into play this month. Socializing is also going to be a big thing for you, okay, with Venus and Mercury in your 11th house. So you may find that especially during Gemini season, you guys are really getting out there. Perhaps you're networking a lot. Perhaps you're interacting with people who can help you achieve your career goals or even your lifelong goals and ambitions. I feel like many of you are going to be thinking about and interacting with people who are like your tribe, right? Finding your tribe, people with whom you share ideas with, people, like-minded people. That may be a focus for you, particularly in the first half of the month during Gemini season. All right, next up, you have an emphasis on your 12th house when the Sun moves into Cancer. So the Sun and the new moon will be in your 12th house. So this is about resting, number one, because you need to get ready for your season, which is coming up in July, number one. Number two, this is almost like a spiritual awakening, right? Because we have a new beginning with the new moon in your 12th house of spirituality. So I feel like you can have a spiritual awakening. You can have a spiritual epiphany even. Some of you may be pursuing different spiritual goals. So this could be maybe getting into some new spiritual practices, getting into your faith a little bit more. I feel like the new moon in Cancer is going to be ripe for that. And again, like I mentioned before, this may be something that you want to keep to yourself, not because of the subject matter, right? I'm not saying that anything having to do with faith or spirituality sort of needs to be hidden, but again, it's something that you're going to want to nurture. Because particularly with Neptune going retrograde and seeing the reality of humanity, you may really want to keep your faith private in a way to strengthen it, right? We're in a time of spiritual warfare, although I think I'm going to do a video on that because that's really important. But so you're going to want to keep that sort of close to your chest and close to your heart. But it's great energy for a spiritual awakening and a new spiritual beginning, all right? And then finally, and this is what's going to have you feeling like yourself, this is going to be the full moon in your 5th house, okay? Now, the 5th house, Leo is the natural ruler of the 5th house, okay? And so this is the house of self-expression, creativity, entertainment, and fun. And I see with the full moon in there, this is going to be about standing out versus fitting in. And for you guys, I can almost guarantee with certainty that you're more concerned about standing out because Leo is, the lion. It's the king of the jungle. You guys are the star of the show. You guys also tend to be a little dramatic, but, that's neither here nor there. So the full moon in Sagittarius, I feel like it's really going to be it's going to highlight creativity, romance, having fun, entertainment, and self-expression. And perhaps this is going to highlight the fact that maybe you've really been going with the crowd a lot lately. You've really been concerned about fitting in and you've sort of almost lost yourself. Now it's time to get back to yourself and stand out and be the Leo that you know that you are born and made to be. All right. So full moon for you guys, I feel like it's going to be a bit of fun. I feel like if any emotions you feel around the full moon, I feel like they're going to be very lighthearted. I feel like they're going to be fun, perhaps even romantic. But I feel like the full moon is going to be a real nice one for you guys. All right. We are making our way right along. So next up, we've got Virgo. All right, Virgo. So this month, the areas of focus for you are your higher mind, which is the 9th house. Okay. So that covers things like philosophy, religion, long distance travel, legal situations. Then you have an emphasis on your career, public life, and reputation. Thereafter, there's also an emphasis on your friendships, your associations, your goals and ambitions. And finally, you have an emphasis on home, family, and domestic affairs. All right, so let's get into it. So first up, we have an emphasis on your 9th house, like I mentioned before. The 9th house covers things like higher education, long distance travel, not relationships, legal situations, anything that expands your mind and broadens your horizons is covered by the 9th house. And so you're going to have Venus and Mercury retrograde in your 9th house. What I love about this is that this could be a long distance relationship from the past coming back around. And it's a very select few people that may be experiencing this, but there's definitely a possibility. Even if it's not a long distance relationship that's coming back around, this may be the start of a long distance relationship because Venus is in your 9th house. This could also be an attraction to things that are different, things that are not familiar to you. So this could be an attraction to different kinds of foods, different kinds of cultures, different kinds of ideologies, right? It could be a very interesting and adventurous time for you. This could also be conversations with people that are different, particularly from people that are from the past who may be different. They may be of different cultures, different faiths, different ideologies, different religions. You may be having more conversations with those people, okay? This may also be, especially if you are in school, if you're taking upper level courses, this could also be reviewing some of that coursework from the past, or even reviewing some knowledge that you've obtained over the years. The knowledge that's gained in terms of the 9th house is knowledge, it's really wisdom that's gained from experience. So some of you may be reviewing some of these things, some of these gems of wisdom that you've collected over the years, okay? Especially with Mercury retrograde in there. All right. Next up, you have an emphasis on your 10th house, and you're going to have Venus, Mercury, and the Sun. All right. So the 10th house is your house of the your career. It's your house of your career, your public life, your reputation, all that good stuff. All right. Now, with Venus in your 10th house, this is very much about your business relationships and your relationships to people like superiors, authority figures, employees, followers, fans, subscribers. All of those relationships may come into play or may be focused, particularly during Gemini season when the sun is in your 10th house. Okay. It's also about your reputation, things that you say affecting your reputation, particularly with Mercury in Gemini. So it's almost like your words are going to hold a lot of weight and they may really affect your place in society or your reputation. So you're definitely going to want to be mindful of the things that you say. All right. Next up, we have the 11th house. You have an 11th house emphasis, which is all about friendships, associations, goals, and ambition. So this is really going to be highlighted when the sun moves into Cancer, because it's going to highlight your 11th house. Plus the new moon is going to be there. So you're going to have the opportunity to, form new friendships, associate with new people, perhaps work on some goals and ambitions that are new, that are, lifelong goals, really large scale things that you want to achieve in your life. I feel like the new moon in Cancer is going to allow you the chance to do that. And again, you're going to want to keep these close to your chest and really nurture them and watch them grow over the coming months. All right. And then finally, the full moon in Sagittarius is going to highlight your 4th house of home and domestic affairs. Now, this is going to be the dichotomy between your private life and your public life, okay? You already have an emphasis on your 10th house at the beginning of the month. And that's your private life. Like I said, it's your work, it's your career, it's your reputation. And I feel like by the end of the month, there's also going to be an emphasis on your 4th house of home and your private life, okay? There's also going to be the dichotomy between family on the one hand and, the public on the other. And I feel like the full moon is going to really get you to get that in balance, okay? Perhaps you've been paying too much attention to career and not enough attention at home, or vice versa. The full moon is going to highlight that imbalance and give you an opportunity to correct it. All right. So that is Virgo. All right. Next up, we've got Libra. All right. So Libra rising. This month is going to have a focus on, number one, intimacy, shared resources, beginnings and endings. Transformation is going to be a thing for you this month. You're also going to have an emphasis on your higher mind. So this covers things like higher education. Oh, my nose is itching. Sorry. Education, long distance travel, legal situations, philosophy, and religion. That's also going to be highlighted. You're also going to have an emphasis on your career, your public life, and your reputation. And the full moon is going to highlight your immediate surroundings, your immediate environment. All right. Really interesting stuff. So let's get into it. All right. First up, we have that 8th house emphasis, like I was mentioning before. And you're going to have Venus and Mercury retrograde in there. So this is all about your intimate relationships. You all know what intimate means, so you get it. This is also going to be about shared resources, particularly money. So this is money you may share with a spouse. This also covers things like loans, insurance policies, inheritances, taxes, anything, any resource, any money that belongs to someone else is covered by the 8th house. So you may see an emphasis on that. Maybe you have a tax issue. Maybe you receive an inheritance from a deceased family member or friend. Maybe you have to go over insurance policies or any sort of paperwork having to do with insurance policies, taxes, wills even. Those are going to be covered, especially if they are from the past, because we're talking about Mercury retrograde. So be mindful of some of those things coming back around, particularly tax issues. Okay. So if you weren't on the up and up with your taxes, that might come back around to bite you in the ass. I'm just saying. But otherwise, for many of you, I feel like this is going to be all about intimacy, and it's going to be about how you value your intimate relationships and what criteria you hold for your intimate relationships. Venus in your 8th house is definitely going to ask these questions of you this month. Next up, you have a 9th house emphasis, and this is during Gemini season because you have the Sun, Mercury, and Venus in your 9th house. So this is all about long distance relationships. This is about business transactions overseas. So this could be foreign affairs. With Mercury in there, Mercury ruling paperwork, this could be an immigration issue because the 9th house covers legal situations. It also covers like things at a distance from you. Mercury also covers paperwork. So some of you may be dealing with immigration issues at this point or during Gemini season. This could also be coursework, upper level coursework. So if you're still in school, all of that is going to come into play. But it's also going to give you this sort of surge of energy to experience new things and broaden your horizons. I feel like during Gemini season, many of you Libra risings are going to want to be adventurous. You're going to want to try new things, go out on an adventure, do something different. I feel like it's interesting because many of the Libras I know have been sort of stuck in a rut lately. And I feel like this Gemini season gives you the opportunity to really experience new things and sort of get out of your regular routine, get out of your immediate vicinity and explore and experience new things. It's also a great time for long distance travel. So if you can, Gemini season is a great time for you to take an exotic vacation or at least visit some place you've never been before. Okay. Next up, you have an emphasis on your 10th house, particularly when the sun goes into the sign of Cancer. So the sun and the new moon are going to be in your 10th house. So this is all about setting new career goals. Again, career goals that you're going to want to nurture and protect and again, keep close to your chest. Okay. This is all about recognition also. So some of you may be getting awards or public recognition for, work you've done in the past, or even certain relationships that you have with respect to work. So some of you may be experiencing some nice and well-deserved recognition during Cancer season. But other than that, it's about making new career moves. So even though it's summertime, you're going to want to at least put a little effort into your career, your life purpose, your vocation. If you're an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs work all the time, but even though it's summer, you're definitely going to want to put in some work because the astrology is definitely going to support that. Okay. And then finally, you have an emphasis on your 3rd house with the full moon in Sagittarius. Okay. This is going to be the difference between knowing versus believing. Okay. So on the one hand, I feel like many of you are going to be really focused on what you believe, right? On, your faith and being optimistic and sort of looking towards the future. And I feel like the full moon in Sagittarius is going to highlight what's in your face and sort of what the reality of the situation is or the reality of your life is. So it's almost like some of you are really, let me say this. I feel like the full moon may highlight some of the technical skills and some of the technical knowledge that you may need to sort of realize those larger than life dreams that you have. Okay. So I feel like the full moon is really going to highlight what's right in front of you, what's right under your nose, and some of the skills that you need to acquire this month. So I feel like in the beginning of the month, you're really sort of on this high and you're really wanting to expand your mind. And I feel like towards the end of the month, you're going to be reining things in and really getting technical and real. All right. So that was Libra. Next up, we've got Scorpio rising. All right. So for you, Scorpio, the areas of focus for this month are going to be work and health. So that's your 6th house. The work, when I say work, is really service that you provide for others. So this is going to be your regular job, your 9 to 5, things that you do in your daily routine in service to others. And your health obviously covers your physical health, but could also cover your emotional and your spiritual health as well. You're also going to have an emphasis on your relationships. And these are going to be your serious relationships. So these are going to be your commitments, your contractual obligations. All right.
Next up, you're going to have a focus on intimacy. All right. This is going to be sex. This is going to be transformation. This is going to be shared resources. You know, the eighth house is kind of a mystery, but we're going to kind of decode it. All right. Then you're also going to have an emphasis on your higher mind. So this is going to be upper level coursework, religion, philosophy, legal situations, long distance travel. And then finally, you're going to have an emphasis on money, material possessions, and things that you value. All right, so let's get into it. All right, Scorpio. So first off, you have an emphasis on your sixth house because Venus and Mercury retrograde are going to be in there. So this is the work. Oh, no, I'm sorry. For you, it's your ruling planet Mars and Jupiter that are going to be in your sixth house. Okay. So this is going to be, you're going to be motivated to serve others. You're sort of going to be motivated to put in the work, especially on your day-to-day routine. But it's kind of coming from a selfish place, okay? It's sort of like I wouldn't even say selfish, right? Let's just say that you garner personal gratification from the work that you do for others, okay? And in doing so, that's where you're going to find your abundance, all right? So as long as you feel good with what you're doing, I feel like the universe is sort of going to reward you with abundance. That's the presence of Jupiter in your sixth house. Also, any little actions that you take in your day-to-day routine can really be expanded, right? So if you put in a little bit of effort, you can get a lot in return. So keep that in mind. Particularly, well, actually, that's going to be all month because Jupiter and Mars are going to be in Aries all month. So that's something that you can look forward to all month. So again, a little bit of work, a lot of bit of reward. Keep that in mind. Okay. Next up, you have an emphasis on your seventh house, and that's where you have Venus and Mercury retrograde. So this is going to be past obligations, past relationships, past issues in relationships, particularly issues having to do with fairness and equality, right? So if you're in a relationship and perhaps things are one-sided, this Mercury retrograde is going to allow you to balance the scales because you're going to be able to review those kind of things. Okay. Also, like I said before, if you have contractual obligations, those are going to come up, particularly ones from the past. It may be time to renegotiate a contract, revise a contract, especially if it has to do with money or something valuable like intellectual property or something like that. You're going to want to review and revise those. All right. Next up, we have an eighth house emphasis when the sun is in Gemini, because the sun, Mercury, and Venus are going to be in your eighth house. Now, as I alluded to before, the eighth house is a bit of a mysterious house because it encompasses things that almost seem like they don't fit together. It's intimacy, right? Which is sex, basically. You have, or merging together to become one. Let me just say that in the nice theoretical sort of way. There's also, it covers death. It covers rebirth. It's the phoenix rising from the ashes. It also covers shared resources. Okay. So it covers things like loans, insurance policies, inheritances. Eighth house also covers things that are taboo. Things of the occult are covered under the eighth house. So sometimes I feel like the eighth house is like a mixed bag of like a whole bunch of random things, but all of these things sort of make sense because it's all sort of things that have to do with our subconscious merging into one. It's sort of a lot of these esoteric themes that fall into the eighth house. But just wanted to sort of clarify that because a lot of times people get confused on what the eighth house covers, but that's pretty much what it is. All right. So like I said, Venus, Mercury, and the sun are going to be in there. So during Gemini season, your eighth house is going to be lit. And this is all about intimacy. It's about money, shared resources, communication between intimate partners, communication and paperwork regarding loans, taxes, inheritances, wills. All of those things may be highlighted during Gemini season. Or you might just have a lot of paperwork going on. Like maybe if you work in like insurance or something like that, like your workload may increase. Eighth house also covers debt. So maybe paperwork related to debt, maybe debt itself, maybe a thing for you during Gemini season when the sun, Mercury, and Venus are in there. Okay. Next up, we have an emphasis on the ninth house. And this is when the sun moves into Cancer. So the sun and the new moon will be in your 9th house, and the 9th house covers higher education, long distance travel, legal situations, religion, and philosophy. And this allows you to have a new beginning in any of those areas. So if you've been looking to start a legal proceeding, the new moon in Cancer will be the best time to do so. If you've been looking to go back to school, perhaps for a PhD or a master's degree, or go to law school or medical school, the new moon in Cancer is a great time to like put in those applications, or, at least start thinking about it. But again, you're going to want to keep these close to your heart and protect them, okay? Because this is not the time. The new moon in Cancer is definitely not the time to be telling everyone what you're trying to do, what you're trying to have, what you're trying to manifest. It's really about being private with it, all right? So if you're looking to go back to school, maybe not tell everyone. Just kind of do you, and then just invite them to your graduation, all right? And then finally, you have an emphasis on your 2nd house with the full moon in Sagittarius. So this is going to cover, and this is going to highlight your personal assets versus shared assets, okay? So maybe you've been depending on other people a lot when it comes to money, or when it comes to assets or anything like that. I feel like the full moon is going to sort of put things back in balance, and it's going to show you where you have your own resources, where you can find your own resources or build up your own resources. I feel like things that you value are also going to be highlighted at this full moon, okay? So this could be things like your self-worth, your self-esteem. All of those things are going to be illuminated under the light of the full moon, okay? All right, so that was Scorpio. All right. Next up, we've got Sagittarius. All right, Sag. So for you, the areas of focus this month are 1, your creativity and self-expression. 2, work, the work that you do for others, your day-to-day routine, and your health, which obviously covers your physical health. 3, your relationships. These are your commitments, your contractual obligations. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time saying obligations today. Obligations. 4, intimacy, death, rebirth, transformation, all of that good stuff. Shared resources also. And then finally, you. The full moon is happening in your sign, so there's going to be emphasis on you this month, all right, which should be very interesting. All right. So first, we have an emphasis on your 5th house. And this is because your ruling planet Jupiter, along with Mars, are going to be in your 5th house of Aries. So this is all about being very fervent, being bold and dynamic in your self-expression and your creativity. This could be taking a very direct route to goals having to do with self-expression. So like a hobby, or let's say you make money from something that's like painting, music, art, any of those things. I feel like you're going to be very direct in your ambition to succeed with those things. Anything having to do with children or romance may be where you find your abundance and sort of your emotional fulfillment as well. They also may be the best places to express yourself. So for some of you, this may be a great time to conceive children. Mars rules sex and your 5th house of children. This may be a great time to conceive, or at least try to conceive at this time. This may be a great time to start dating, put yourself out there, be your real authentic self in order to find someone that you connect with. Again, that may be where you find your abundance. Next up, we have an emphasis on your 6th house because Venus and Mercury retrograde are going to be in there. So the 6th house covers work and health. These are going to be your relationships to coworkers and clients. Okay, these may come into play and be highlighted when during the month when Venus and Mercury retrograde are in your 6th house. So this could be past paperwork relating to work. This could be past work projects, or maybe ideas related to work or your daily routine that can come back up, especially if we're talking about Mercury retrograde. Past health regimens, past health issues may also come back up with Mercury retrograde, okay? So maybe you want to revisit a diet that you used, or maybe there was a regimen that you followed that worked for you in the past in terms of keeping you healthy. Maybe you want to revisit that, particularly while Mercury is still retrograde, because it'll be beneficial to you. All right, next up, during Gemini season. So for the first half of the month, there's an emphasis on your 7th house of relationships. So again, this is just going to be a focus on your relationships, communication within those relationships, contracts, paperwork. I feel like I'm saying paperwork ad nauseum this month. Like Mercury is really doing the most this month. And I feel like paperwork is just a big thing all around. But in these relationships, the values and the criteria that you have in these relationships may also come into play during Gemini season. Okay, so expect some movement on that front this month. Okay, and then when the sun moves into Cancer, your 8th house is going to be highlighted. And this is the mysterious house that deals with intimacy, shared resources, debt, inheritances, all of that stuff. And with the new moon, this allows you to form new intimate relationships. If you're looking for money from other people, so if you're looking for funding, if you're looking for loans, this new moon the new moon in Cancer is definitely going to be great for that. Some of you may find that Cancer season brings in an inheritance for you, for those of you fortunate to be receiving an inheritance. This also covers things that like the occult, astrology, psychology. The 8th house also covers those things. So maybe at the new moon, you start learning about these things, or you start delving into these things on a deeper level. Like the astrology will definitely support that. And then finally, the full moon in Sagittarius is going to be in your sign, which is going to light up your 1st house of self. So this is going to be all about you, but not typically. I was trying to say something and now I completely forgot. I meant to say that this full moon is going to highlight the dichotomy between me versus we. And the full moon is going to highlight the me part of that dichotomy. So perhaps some of you have been really paying a lot of attention to your relationships. Maybe you've become immersed in your relationships. And the full moon is going to highlight everything that you need to focus on pertaining to you. So it's actually going to make you take a step back and sort of redirect that focus to yourself. Okay. For some, it may be the opposite. For others, this may highlight a body issue, a health issue even. But regardless, the full moon is going to highlight everything having to do with you. All right. All right. We are nearing the end. So next up, we've got Capricorn. All right, Capricorn. So for you, June is going to highlight money. So your money, your assets, the things that you value. Creativity, self-expression, and romance. Work, health, and your physical body. Relationships, commitments, and contractual obligations. And finally, your spirituality. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so first up, we have an emphasis on your 2nd house. And this is because your ruling planet Saturn is going to be going retrograde on June 4th. And so because it's your ruling planet, you guys are going to be feeling this the most, actually, you and Aquarius. So when Saturn is retrograde in your 2nd house, this is all about past money matters, particularly the lessons that we've learned with respect to money and the things that we value. So if you've had difficulty saving money, or if you've been overly stingy, or if, you spend recklessly, or anything having to do with money in a sort of life lesson way, hopefully I'm saying this and it makes sense, that's going to come back up for review. So any lessons you haven't learned, you are going to be relearning during Saturn retrograde, particularly during June. I was going to say January, especially during June. Next up, you have a 5th house emphasis with Venus and Mercury retrograde in that house. So it's going to be about romance. It's also going to be about your relationship to your children. It's also going to be about creativity. For those of you who are creative or who actually tap into your creativity, with Mercury retrograde, this is going to allow you to revisit past creative ideas and endeavors. Especially you guys, any Capricorn. So whether it's Capricorn sun, rising, or even moon to a certain extent, you guys are all about money. And that's not a bad thing. Like you guys are about status, money. Like you guys are very serious, grounded, and you like real intangible things. And so I feel like Mercury retrograde in your 5th house can really allow you to monetize a hobby, monetize something that you really love doing, especially something from the past. Perhaps maybe you've let it fall by the wayside. Like maybe you're into painting and you've sort of put it down for a while. I feel like Mercury retrograde in your 5th house is going to allow you to pick that back up. And with Venus in there as well, this gives you the ability to monetize it, make some money off of that. So think about that, especially during the first half of the month. All right. Next up, you have a 6th house emphasis when the sun is in Gemini, and Venus and Mercury are also going to be in there as well. So this is all about your work, okay, the service that you provide for others on a daily basis. This is about your health. How much do you value your health? I think that Gemini season is definitely going to ask that of you, okay? It's all about working relationships. So this could be your relationship to coworkers, relationship to clients, people that you serve on a daily basis. Your relationship to those people is actually going to be highlighted, okay, during Gemini season. All right, next up, speaking of relationships, you're also going to have an emphasis on your 7th house of relationships when the sun goes into Cancer. So the sun and the new moon are going to be in your 7th house. So if you're looking to take a relationship to the next level, looking for more commitment, if you're looking to get married, moving in, all of that serious kind of stuff, you can definitely set those intentions at the new moon in Cancer. But again, it's something that you're going to want to protect and nurture, and you're going to want to keep it close to your chest. All right. This could also be new contracts and new business opportunities, okay? Things that you sign on the dotted line and set in stone for the most part. You can actually set those manifestations up at the new moon in Cancer, right? So definitely keep that in mind as well. And then finally, you have an emphasis on your 12th house with the full moon in Sagittarius. And this is basically the dichotomy between your spiritual body and your physical body. Your spiritual body is definitely going to be highlighted. So things that you haven't paid attention to in terms of your spirituality, your faith, your religion, your spiritual practices are definitely going to be highlighted at the full moon, okay? This is also may bring up a lot of repressed emotions, and things from your subconscious may come and play out in your reality, okay? It's important to know that regardless of what comes up, you still need to have faith in the unseen and faith that things are headed in the right direction, okay? It's also going to be about your spirituality and your spiritual walk. And if you've been paying attention to it or if you've neglected it, I feel like the full moon is also going to highlight that for you. So I feel like the month sort of begins on a very Capricornish kind of note with an emphasis on money and material possessions. And then by the end of the month, I think that you guys really step away from that and really look inward and really think about your faith, your spirituality, and make sense of that. All right. Next up, we've got Aquarius. All right, Aquarius. So for you, this month has a focus on you, your body, your outlook, and your attitude on life, your home, your family, and domestic affairs. This could also cover property as well. Your creativity, your self-expression, romance, and children. Your work, the service that you provide for others, and your physical health, as well as your friendships, associations, goals, and ambitions. All right, so let's get into it, Aquarius. All right, so you guys are ruled by Saturn, at least traditionally. And so with Saturn going retrograde, this is going to be an emphasis on your first house, okay? So this is going to be past life lessons, sort of in the general sense, coming back up for review. So certain things having to do with you, your body, your attitude, and your outlook on life. If you didn't learn those lessons the first time, Saturn retrograde is going to enroll you back in the school of hard knocks and teach you those lessons that you didn't learn. And hopefully you can pass those tests this time around. You also have an emphasis on your 4th house because Venus and Mercury retrograde will be in there. So the 4th house covers home, family, property, and domestic affairs. With Mercury retrograde, this could be paperwork with respect to your home, your apartment, your dwelling, okay? All of that may be time to readdress those things, renegotiate those things, take a look at them perhaps, all of that stuff. With Venus in there, this is going to be about your relationship to your family, particularly your parents, your grandparents, and your lineage, okay? So those relationships may be highlighted this month as well. With Mercury retrograde in there, maybe you guys are having conversations from the past or reminiscing about things with respect to your family and your lineage, okay? Next up, we have an emphasis on the 5th house, particularly during Gemini season, because the Sun, Mercury, and Venus are going to be in there. And this is sort of a feel good and have fun time for you, okay? Because the 5th house covers fun, it covers self-expression, covers things like sports, entertainment. All of those things are covered by the 5th house. And so during Gemini season, that's when all of that sort of activity is going to ramp up. If you've got kids, I feel like your activities with kids or concerning kids is going to ramp up. Creative endeavors, sporting activities, entertainment. I feel like Gemini season is really the time for you guys to really have fun, be out there and socialize. So you should definitely do a lot of that. All right. Next up, we have an emphasis on the 6th house, particularly when the Sun moves into Cancer. And this is the Sun and the new moon in your 6th house. So this is all about starting something new with respect to work and health. This could be a new work project. This could be doing something in your daily routine to be more efficient, or maybe adding another service to the work that you already provide. This could also be a new diet, a new health regimen, a new way of living in your body. That you may want to start or set those intentions for at the new moon in Cancer. Okay. And then finally, you have an emphasis on the 11th house with the full moon in Sagittarius. This is the dichotomy between fitting in and standing out. I feel like your groups and associations are going to be highlighted. Something may happen within those groups, friend groups, association groups, even if you're in groups on like Facebook or anything like that. I feel like those are going to be highlighted at the full moon. And it's really about how do you fit into those? Or are you not meant to fit in, or are you meant to stand out? I feel like those themes are really going to play out for you with that full moon. All right. So that was Aquarius. Finally, and last but not least, because we're almost going on 2 hours here, we've got Pisces rising. Hello, my beautiful Pisces. How are you? So the areas of focus for you this month are: number 1, money. Money, money, money. Number 2, your immediate vicinity. So that could be your neighborhood or your community. Number 3, your home and your family, or maybe even your physical home, domestic activities, all of that kind of stuff. Your creativity, your self-expression, romance, and children. And then finally, an emphasis on your career. All right, so let's get into it. First up, you have an emphasis on money because your ruling planet Jupiter is in your 2nd house of money, along with Mars. Fortune favors the bold. Okay. If I could write that in like huge letters and put them across the screen right now, I definitely would. Fortune favors the bold. If you take a little bit of a financial risk, the reward can be exponential. Okay. Take a calculated risk, but take a risk nonetheless, especially with money or investments. I feel like it'll really pay off for you this month, or at least in the near future, because the thing with Mars is quick moving energy. It's about quick action that yields immediate results. So if you find some quick money, I mean, please don't do anything Ponzi scheme-ish, pyramid shit-ish. Okay. But quick money, like that's the theme of Mars and Jupiter in your 2nd house. All right. So keep that in mind. Next up, you have an emphasis on your 3rd house because Venus and Mercury retrograde is going to be there. So the 3rd house covers your immediate vicinity. It covers siblings. It also covers neighbors and extended family members. So this could be your relationship with siblings or neighbors or community members may come into play, may be highlighted, particularly ones from the past. Maybe there's a neighbor you haven't seen in a while and all of a sudden they pop up. Or maybe there's a community member or someone, in your immediate vicinity that just pops back up after you not having seen them for a while. Okay. There's also past transactions, particularly business transactions that may be coming back up for review, or maybe coming back up for a do-over with Mercury retrograde. Next up, you have a 4th house emphasis when the sun is in Gemini, and the Sun, Venus, and Mercury will be in your 4th house. This is all about your home, your family, your parents, grandparents, lineage, property, your relationship to these people, number 1. Number 2, your communication with these people, with Mercury being in there. Paperwork. I feel like I'm saying paperwork ad nauseum with this video, but it is what it is. Paperwork related to your home, your dwelling, your apartment, maybe your lease or your mortgage. Any of those things may come into focus when the sun is in Gemini. Okay. And again, that's your 5th house with the sun and the new moon in Cancer going on right there. Okay. No, did something weird just happen? Okay. This is new romance. Okay. If you're looking to conceive children, this is a great transit for that as well. Remember I said new moons are all about planting seeds. I'm like tongue tied. New moons are all about planting seeds. Cancer is all about nurturing those seeds. All right. So this is literally like nurturing your belly, nurturing the baby inside you. If you are a woman conceiving kids, new romance, anything that you want to give birth to, doesn't have to be kids, could be a creative endeavor, a way to express yourself. You're going to want to plant those seeds at the new moon in Cancer. All right. And then last but not least, the full moon in Sagittarius is going to highlight your career sector, okay? So this is going to be the dichotomy between your career and your home life, okay? And your career is going to be lit because that is where the full moon is going to happen. So something within your career, something within your public life may elicit an emotional response. Something may happen that's just going to direct your emotions to your career, right? Perhaps you've been giving your career too much emotion and not enough emotion at home, or vice versa. The full moon is going to illuminate that imbalance so that you can balance things out and have equality across the board. All right. We're done. We made it through the entire zodiac for the month of June. If you joined me live tonight, thank you so much. You could have been doing anything, but you decided to rock with me. And for that, I am eternally grateful. I'm eternally grateful. I sincerely hope that you guys were able to get at least one itsy-bitsy nugget of information that can help you this month. All right. Again, thank you so much for joining me. I wish you nothing but peace, tranquility, love, abundance, great health, and wealth in the month of June. All right. Thank you so much for joining. Take care, and I will see you next time. Oops. I guess I'm seeing you sooner rather than later. But in any event, see you soon. Bye.